other resources out there to help parents come to an understanding of how this journey is, because no one can tell you exactly how to walk this journey. It's unpredictable. It's not the norm, and you're modifying and changing and learning how to be flexible, learning how to, walk in peace, learning not to, be frustrated all at once. We can't raise these kids without a relationship with God. We need God's help and direction to fulfill the purpose He created within them.
Ooh.
Well, welcome to Same Purpose, New Plan podcast. I'm Pastor Feltina Holmes, and my guest today is Mr. James Moore.
Hello, everyone. I'm doing okay, Pastor. How are you?
I'm blessed. I'm doing great. I'm happy that God's opened the door for me to do this podcast to just help as many parents as I can. And it's been an exciting journey thus far. And I'm ready. I'm ready to get started with you.
So am I. I'm ready because, oof, child, you've been talking to me.
You called me yesterday.
Yes, ma'am.
And you start to say, or you make some statements about the first podcast I did. And I stopped you mid. I go, oh, hold on a second. I said, wait just 1 minute, because this sounds like a good podcast follow-up to the first episode I did. And I stopped you too also because everyone calls me. And they go, oh, you said, wait, stop. Because at the end, we had this great conversation. And I'm like, this cannot be duplicated.
It could have been recorded. Now it's going to be hard to duplicate. I got you.
We have tried to duplicate those phone calls. And sure enough, we could not do it as well as that phone call went. And so I said, this time I'm just going to stop mid statement and say, look, let's just get online, because when you make that phone call and you're listening to someone, it's raw, it's real, it's right in there. And it's sometimes that the person says something that's life-changing, inspiring to me, and also life-changing, but also it's going to be life-changing for that person who listens to this podcast.
Right.
And that's what
totally
I want. That's what I want. So we're going to continue the start of our conversation yesterday. And you had mentioned you listened to the first one all over again. You said this is your second one.
Yeah, I wanted to start listening to all of your episodes over again. One, to get a refresher, and two, because I miss hearing your voice from time to time. So every once in a while, it's always good to have that little buzz in your ear saying, hold on a second. You got to take control of this the right way and do it properly. So most of the situations I catch myself in now, when it involves my son Luther, when it comes to the school, is I need to slow down and pump the brakes a bit. I also consult my wife on this as well, or we're both we confide in each other in a lot of things when it comes to dealing with Luther and some of the things that we've been going through. But taking control is one thing that we both are literally universal on. So you got the Nation of Luther, and then you got the United Front, and then you have the teachers. So, we got to put that in perspective.
Now, when you say take control, explain that, because a lot of people may not remember the first podcast I spoke about.
What I mean by taking control is making sure that things are getting done properly, but making sure that you're in control of it and not having other outside influences, say like the school, tell you what is best for your child or whatever the case may be. It's more of like, no, hold on. I'm the parent. You guys listen to us and go by what we say, not by what your analysis says. Because at the end of the day, we know our children.
Absolutely.
We are the ones who are with our children. You are just there part-time. We are there 24/7. You're not there when they wake up in the morning. You're not there when they eat their breakfast, their lunch. Well, maybe their lunch, but not their dinner or bath time or bedtime, which is where that one should be right now. But it's okay. I'm letting him stay up a little bit. He can't fall asleep without dad for some reason. I don't know why. It's a dad thing. But But no, as far as taking control, it that's what I mean by taking control. No one is supposed to tell us how we are going to uh operate with our child on a day-to-day basis, because they're just a school. They're not at home. They're not paying our bills or nothing like that. So that's what I mean by taking in control. And believe it or not, I learned that from you before the podcast started. So
Yes, because the Lord instructed me, and he instructs us through His Word. Train up a child in the way they should go, and when they get older, they will not depart from it. Now, He's talking to the parents,
right.
right? He's talking to the parents with that. And so, because I knew that scripture, going into this journey of autism with my daughter from the get go, I realized I had to take the lead.
Mm-hmm.
I had to take the lead, and I knew that when I went into any parent meeting or any IEP, the Lord showed me that I had to show them that I'm the advocate, I'm the parent, I'm the teacher, I'm the first therapist, I'm the first OT, ST, ABA. I'm the first
Mm-hmm.
brain.
First responder. We
I'm
are
the
the
I'm the
first responders.
CEO of my child and her path, along with my husband. So going into it, when I say control, I want to make sure that those who are listening say, okay, well, she's controlling. No, it's about being the one who can walk as a parent, walk in your authority that God has given to you to help your child.
Right.
And the resources, the schools are resource, therapies are resource. You come to the table and you say, look, this is my plan
Mm-hmm.
for my daughter, okay, or my child, who your child is. I need your resources, and I need your profession to utilize those resources, how I can use those resources, and how to implement into my plan, because it's my child.
Yes, ma'am.
Versus going in and saying, well, what should I do? And some people have to do that. What should I do? They have to be educated if they're not moving forward in that direction. They don't know how, or many people get the diagnosis and don't know what to do. And we'll get to that a little later.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to be talking more. So,
I'm
because
not
you
worried about
mentioned
it
the
at all.
routine, getting up in the morning, bath time, those are
Right.
all particular subjects matters. That's not that as parents with kids with autism, it's not a standard. It's a standard routine for all kids, but it's not standard how we go about it.
Right.
Is that fair to say?
Oh, it's very
Okay.
fair, because
So
you operate way more different than I do.
so
We
let's
got 5 minutes to get to the bus for school. So
So let's get to the comments you were making with the first podcast when you basically said to me, "Wow, Pastor Feltina, you know me well." You said you
yeah,
were talking to me, and I was in tears. So you take it from there. Share with
yeah.
me and share with the audience what you meant by that.
What I meant by that was some of the things that you were describing, was, well, okay, for one, when you first got the diagnosis
Mhm.
from the specialist, that really touched home with me. And the reason why I say that in particular thing brought me to tears is because I remember exactly how I felt. I can tell you, as a matter of fact, even though the living room's not like the way it was, but it was just about close, and I had her up on the TV. My mother-in-law was here, my wife was here. Luther was only 2 when we found that out. And I was angry. I was upset. I mean, maybe it could have been a better way of delivery, or something, but something triggered in me like, no, this can't be happening. Because for a long time now, I thought that, maybe it's something with me. You know what I mean? Because, my wife is a straight and narrow. She's like the best person I could have possibly. I'm glad God brought us together to make this bundle of joy, and the one that she's currently carrying now. I she kept me. She's still to this day even helping me stay calm about the subject, because it's hard to. And I haven't really talked to anybody outside of my wife about it. This is the first time I'm ever actually bringing it up, so that's why I'm stumbling so much.
No, I
But
appreciate it. I appreciate it.
it it was rough at first because I didn't know how I was supposed to treat him. I didn't know. I mean, there were so many things I did not know, and we were just going ear by ear and doing whatever the school thought was best because they knew. or at least we thought we did. But after talking with you, they don't know Jack Diddley. So, but I was angry for a long, long time. I think it took me over 2 years to get over it.
Mm.
Before, and that was during COVID time, um, when all that stuff was happening, and I wound up quitting my job, and now I am a full-time dad. I take care of my son 24/7 from the time he gets up to the time he goes to bed, which is why he's waiting for me to, you know, making him dinner from some nights. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not proficient in the kitchen, but I will do the best I can to make sure that he eats and stuff. You know, I had to do these things to kind of get my mind off of thinking about why they said he was autistic or how this happened or whatever the case was at that time in my brain. I was finding different outlets to kind of get my mind out of it
Yeah.
and focus more on him. And then after catching up with you the first time we met up a long time ago when we visited the Rock Salvation, and I was like, oh, I remember. But at the time that I met you, I don't think you were a pastor. It's either that or I can't remember. I was young. It was a long time ago. But it felt so warming to know that there was someone that has gone through this before I did and is willing to give that hand. And since then, I have a special group of people at church who work with Luther now, to try to get him to understand certain things that are going on, and try to get a lesson plan together. I got a meeting about that later on this week. I think it's tomorrow or Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's the best part about church, you know, is that you never know who you run into. Like another coordinator for well, down here in San Diego County where I live, it's SDRC, San Diego Regional Center.
Mm-hmm.
I ran into someone at church who actually works for the same type deal down here, but in San Bernardino County. And we just been chatting it up every once in a while. You know, we come across each other at church every Sunday we go, and it's been helpful having that guidance to help
Yeah.
me mitigate what I should be angry at, or if I should even be angry at all. You
Mm-hmm.
know, overall, it's still a blessing because this is my firstborn and I wanted things to be perfect. Second one,
Yeah.
not so much. No, I'm just kidding.
Ah,
But you know, I'm only doing that because I'm trying to keep myself from getting a little emotional thinking about it.
yes.
So I probably will try to ease up on my wisecracks throughout the rest of this session. But I was angry for a very, very long time,
Now,
and I've
now let
I've
me
learned
ask you
to
this.
adjust.
Let me ask you this.
Mhm.
Who are you angry at? Were you just angry, or were you angry at God, or were you just angry at, yourself?
Ooh.
Who were you angry at?
At first, I was angry at myself
Okay.
because I thought it was something that I might have caused. You know, when you're young, you do a lot of crazy and dumb stuff. I was one of those people who did a lot of crazy and dumb stuff without going into detail, might I add, because that was such a long time ago. But
Mhm.
I wanted to make sure that if it was me, then I need to get checked. You know, that was the first thing because I didn't know what was going on. I was lost. I was confused how they came up with this
Yeah.
diagnosis, I should say,
Yeah.
uh, off of a piece of paper and a couple of circles with things written down about certain activities. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, how can a few simple words in a sentence
Yeah.
that's repeated, might I add, just questioned differently in a questionnaire, determine whether or not my son has a disorder or ASD, I believe it's called.
Yes.
So for a long, long time, I thought it was me, and I was angry at myself because how could I do this to my wife? You know what I mean? Like, how could I do this to my
Oh,
family? You know, what could I have done to prevent this? You know what I mean? Like, he came from me. So that's why I'm just like, you know, I think it's something wrong with me. Because like I said, that's a straight and narrow in there. My wife, I mean, smartest person I know. Glad I got her. God, I'm glad I got her because
what's changed now?
what's changed now?
Yeah, where that if you were angry at yourself first, now did the anger shift somewhere? to someone else, or?
No, I diminished it.
Oh, there you go.
I diminished it. I have no anger in my heart or anything like that towards what my son has. And that's the power of church.
So
That's
you
the
forgave
power of
yourself
prayer.
for even
Yes,
thinking that?
I did.
Okay.
I had to. In order for me to move on, I had to forgive myself. It's something that I talked to one of our pastors at our church about. Um, it helped. It helped a lot. There was a men's breakfast about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And I went to that, and it was one of my first times meeting majority of the men at church. I'd only see them in passing because I had to drive back to San Diego, but
Yes.
it was the one time I actually got a chance to talk with the pastor, and a lot of the men that were there, they were so inspirational, so helpful. They said you can't blame yourself for what God has planned. God had made him autistic for a reason. It's not your job to find out how or why God did that. It's your job to guide him in the ways that God would want him to go about his life.
Yeah.
Because as parents, I'm starting, and you know what? I never thought I'd say this. I never thought I'd be one of the many few who realizes this, but it's our job as parents to guide our children.
Yes.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian, or whatever the case is. As parents, it's our job to guide them. And when it came down to me, now I'll be honest about my age. I'm 38. I'm turning 38 October 1st. And I've been a parent now as of Saturday for 7 years, 4 days. And it's been the best 7 years, 4 days of my life. Now, granted, he does get on my nerves quite a bit, but that's what they're supposed to do. That's what my wife tells me. He's just being a kid and I have to learn to relax. And that's something that I've been, over the last few weeks, I've been trying to work on myself, as
Amen.
far as my patience, as far as my understanding, and also giving him the benefit of the doubt before I raise my blood pressure and start yelling at him. It's been helpful, especially with the lessons that I'm learning at church on Sundays when we go to church, what I talk to my wife about and trying to get better at understanding.
Amen.
I know she hears me if she's not asleep already because the door is open and he's just sitting right here. But she's been one of the best parts of me getting through most of the things that I'm getting through. And in return, I'm trying to do the same for her. You
Now,
know,
now that's key, because I speak to a lot of parents, and some are, their marriages are dissolving.
mhm.
They're getting divorced. And some parents that I talk to, their marriage is becoming stronger. But it takes work,
Oh yeah.
because this is, imagine if you're the first, you're one half of the whole. And if you're
Mhm.
angry and the other spouse is can, not, let's say, let me give you an example. For some, it's hard to come to terms with what you have come to terms with, what I have come to terms with. Our
Mhm.
children have a developmental delay that causes them to struggle in different or multiple areas of life. And I've learned that some parents, they don't know how to talk with each other. Some couples don't know how to talk to each other. They don't know how to express the stress that they're under, or the anger that they're feeling, the emotional roller coaster that they are on. So when they don't communicate and they're not figuring out this journey of
Mhm.
autism together, they eventually divide,
Right.
and they're walking this singular path two different ways. And it
Oh,
never works
absolutely.
that way, because some are walking it, some are just stood still. And they're just there, and they're like, I don't understand this. I'm angry. I don't and they, unfortunately, they're not able to work it out, how
Right.
this journey works,
Mhm.
and especially walking it together. So there are parents I do know that have, or just, they're like, I'm out, I'm done. I'm
Right.
I'm done. I'll do it by myself. And
Mhm.
that's so heartening, because they, these types of podcasts, and there's other resources out there to help parents come to an understanding of how this journey is, because no one can tell you exactly how to walk this journey. it's unpredictable. It's not the norm. And you're modifying and changing and learning how to be flexible, learning how to, walk in peace, learning not to, be frustrated all at once sometimes. And
Right.
so it's so tough that when you, like I always tell people, when you hear something that helps you, please encourage or share it with someone else, because you never know, that one little thing that you've learned will save another person's marriage
Oh, of
or
course.
save them from going into a depression.
Right.
So these conversations we're having are so important. I want, couples who are or listening to this podcast to understand that they're not the only one whose marriage has to go through a renewal of regards to, what is this going to be like?
Right.
Like you said, I quit my job. My wife is going to continue working. Okay. Before we even had her, my husband's like, look, first and foremost, and we didn't know what journey we're going to be on. He's like, look, we can't live in Orange County and have a baby and have a house and you stay home. That's
I
not going
can
to
see
happen.
him saying that
It's
too.
not going to happen. But who knew that God was preparing us? We never know what God's prepared for us, but he made it possible for me to stay at home from the time we were conceived and to here to now.
Right.
But couples have to come together and say, okay, we have to learn what this journey is together. We have to learn
Absolutely.
how our child, what their needs are, what their strengths are, what are their struggles, what are their challenges, what's their diagnosis, define the diagnosis, what resources you have to actually have a sit down, like you do with a budget. You got to sit down and say, let's figure out our child's life
Right.
and who can help us understand this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you guys are doing a wonderful job at that. And then we're all figuring things out.
Oh yeah,
It's
and it
not
came with a lot of struggle too, especially in
fair.
the beginning for us, because there was a lot of adjustments that needed to be made, and that's why I came to the decision. I mean, my last job was, well, prior to me retiring from what I did when I initially stopped working in general, before I went back to work, and then I officially stopped, was I was a commercial truck driver. I've driven all over the U.S. I did that for about 6 years. I got 1.8 million miles down, which
Wow.
sometimes takes 20 years for some drivers. Now, it depends on what you do and how many companies you work for to achieve that. But, after 1.8 million miles in 6 years, that's a big stretch. That was a lot of work. And that was with me being home every few months at one point before me and Derica got together. Then I worked for FedEx and I was home every week, and sometimes a week and a half, and I'd be right back out and back at work again. That you never know. So I let that go, and I just realized that I forgot to close my sliding glass door. Um
We don't want Luther to go out there.
Oh no, he couldn't get past me anyway. Anyway, my
Okay.
desk is positioned. But no, I did that for about 6 years, and I went back to work again when I thought it was feasible because we had a babysitter and we could make these things work. But childcare, especially for those with special needs, is ridiculous high.
It's very expensive.
And especially in certain areas of California, where I'm in a very, very well neighborhood. Where I live is a low-income housing apartment complex, and right across the street from me is 1.2 million to 1.89 million dollar homes
Mhm.
that don't even look like 1.89 million dollar homes.
Mm.
So that's why I'm just like, I'm grateful for what I have, but there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made, and I can't do that from on the road. And plus, my wife needs me home, not just physically, but she needs me home mentally, because
Man.
she needs to relax too. Like right now, I told her she's more than welcome to come and join us. That would be great. But she, of course, as you know, I'm expecting another one.
Yes.
And she is 8 months, 7, 8 months, somewhere in between there, at the bottom end, the 7 months going into 8. So we're almost done with this next race for the child. Um, yeah, let's not do that. So yeah, dealing with a lot, but you know, we're making it work.
It takes a lot of adjustments when you receive that diagnosis.
Hmm.
And it's good. I'm glad that you guys received the diagnosis early
Oh
rather
yeah.
than later.
Oh yeah.
And it's a challenge. But you mentioned patience before, and I tell you, there's a lot of parents I speak to who says, "Oh my goodness, I thought I was patient. I really thought I was patient." And they said, "This is a whole new level." And it's true. You know, you have to, I think you have to tap into God's patience and God's peace, because it's so many things that you're always on a constant path of learning. You're
Oh yeah.
constantly learning something. And right when
Every
you
day.
accomplish something with your child, it exposes something else like, oh, this is happening. What do we do with this? How do we handle this? How do we help her, accomplish this? And then once that is mastered, there's something else that comes to light, and then you're constantly trying to
Constantly.
figure it
Yep.
out. It's nonstop. So I try to share, it's very hard to share with neurotypical parents about what we endure on a daily basis, because they say, oh, they're
Mhm.
doing so good, they're doing so good. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
great. But
Yeah,
you've been
they
doing this
did.
now. And
Like there's something I notice about Luther too, especially when I drop him off somewhere. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. When I drop him off, say like with my aunt, and he's an angel. Nothing happened. Come home, he's going nuts. He doesn't know what to do, and he's not listening to nobody. Now, from time to time, I watch and I just pay attention because he could be stimming. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Stimulation could be up, and like right now, he's showing up because he knows that I'm on here, but he also recognizes you. So he knows, oh, she's family. Okay, it's fine. I just go off and yeah, da 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 da. But
But see, the thing is, we know our kids. Our kids are so intelligent.
oh, very,
My
very.
kid's looking to the right, but she's looking through her left through her peripheral vision and watching and
Hmm.
listening to everything that you're doing. So you have to sometimes observe the child and what they're doing to understand what they're doing and why they're doing, because they understand everything you're doing and saying.
Right.
Everything.
Oh,
And so
absolutely.
that's where the patience comes in. And to where you said you were angry, like now you're like, okay, I'm no longer angry, but you said, I'm learning, I'm working on being patient. I'm learning to work on being patient. And that is a challenge for a lot of people. And when it comes to being patient, it means that you're doing what you're doing. You have to observe,
Oh yeah.
because why is the child doing that? Why, what's going on, and how we respond. We respond too quickly with, oh, and like I've done that. I responded too quickly. I'm like,
Mhm.
what is, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm like, oh
Right.
yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, and it's like, oh, relax,
Right.
relax.
It's
You know,
and you know what? Sometimes it's hard to do. Like I find it very hard to relax. Like if he sleep, then I can kind of relax a little bit until he wakes up again. But it is so hard to when especially when you're doing it every day and your patience can only go so far. For the first 6 months I was watching him by myself, girl, I was losing my mind because not only was I watching him, but I was also watching my godchildren. So I had four kids
oh
at the
my goodness.
same time on top of Luther, who's an army of six by himself. So, and I made that work and I realized I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's my patience, which coincides with my anger, which also coincides with anxiety, which goes with nervousness, which goes with what I have to do inside the kitchen to get everything ready for dinner.
Yeah.
Everything all at once. And I tell people this even to this day that after 5:30, I don't care.
And
Like
he
my patience is like completely gone. But today, is a little bit different, not just because I knew I was going to be on here, but because it was kind of a day that needs to happen. I needed a day to kind of just release. Now, the only time I yell, because I've been good for the last 2 days, is in my car when I'm driving across people who don't know how to drive or
Okay.
making wrong decisions and stuff like that on the road. But I'm trying to separate how I talk here at home compared to my dad calling me right now. Compared to any other day
Let
that
me
I
share
would
something. You're gonna have to practice that, because you gotta be even kill across
right.
the board. And I shared with you before. I said, look, I always tell people, when you wake up in the morning, say, thank the Lord, say, Lord, thank you for this day. Help me to accomplish all that you have ordained me to accomplish. And those things that or I can't, they can wait.
Absolutely.
And you have to, sometimes the dishes will not get done. Other spouse will have to do it. Sometimes, I told you the other time, I said, one time I was so trying to get the floors, everything clean. And my husband looked at me, he goes, what's wrong? I go, I want to clean my floors today. I mean, it spills,
Yeah.
and I got to pick the spill up, but I know it's still there. He goes,
I'm
honey,
still trying to
well,
get this
honey,
floor clean after
he,
yesterday's conversation.
he said, honey, the floors will be there tomorrow.
Yep.
I go, oh. And then I shared with you what that meant to me. And it meant that he was saying, I understand all that you're doing.
Mhm.
That's what he was, I understand, but don't worry.
And that's what my wife Derica does. She does it for
You,
me. She does it daily.
you gotta not worry. There are things that you just can't get done.
Right.
And the more you understand that you're only able to do what really God allows you to get done that day within the strength that you have,
Mhm.
then the peace that God gives that surpasses our understanding,
Right.
that surpasses our need to control
Mhm.
every single thing that's happening in our life, we're good.
Oh,
We're good.
absolutely.
You have you because you remember, God would tell us, hey, in the light and in the dark, however you are at church, you better be at home. Like same way at home.
Right.
Whether
And
at the store, be the same way. You can't be one way here and another day there, because how you
oh,
are, if
absolutely.
you're really outspoken and rude and mean out in the world, it's gonna come back home with you. It's there, it's still there.
Mhm.
So we have to understand that it's doing what we're able to do with the ability to resist trying to do everything. This
Absolutely right.
is
I'm still learning that
we
every day.
will we will continue to learn that. It's no one has I don't know anyone who has mastered that. I do pretty good at it, but I don't master it because
Right. Show
I'm
me the master. Let me in. Well, you know what? When that time comes, we will meet the master. I will say that.
yeah.
God is key. And that's one of the things that um I'm kind of grateful for my wife for, because she pushed me in that direction to a degree, between my wife and my uncle. Otherwise, I wouldn't be going to church in Riverside every Sunday. My uncle's an elder at the church that we attend, and it's been a wonderful experience, not just for me, but for my son Luther, for my wife, who one of her wishes as a family was for us to go to church.
Now hold on a second. You just mentioned, I want people to hear this.
Hmm.
You said you live in San Diego,
Yes, ma'am.
but every Sunday you drive to Riverside.
Yes, ma'am. Right off the 215. I take the 15 because I live close to the 15 and the 5. So I'm in the middle, but I'm closer toward the 15. So we just take the 15 to the 215 and take the Alessandro and make a right on Victoria, and there's our church.
Now listen, when I first got saved, I lived in San Fernando Valley, and I
Ooh,
too traveled all the way to Irvine
Irvine.
on the 405. And it did take me, and I used to stay out here with Pam and Sam on the weekends. I
I
would leave
remember.
Friday and drive 3 hours
Hmm.
on a Friday evening. Like literally 4 p.m. I would get there about 7, and I would stay the week and go to church. And the reason why I'm making mention of that is because we can't raise these kids without a relationship with God. We need God's help and direction to fulfill the purpose he created within them.
Ooh, say that again.
Okay.
Ooh.
See, he created us, and each
Hmm.
and every one of us has a purpose. Our children, though they may have challenges, with symptoms with autism, they have a purpose. And God has called us as parents to train them in the way they should go, to release and uncover their purpose so that they can live the life that God has called them to live. They're not just called to wander around and be in a home. They're called to do God's will.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to realize that.
Right.
And that's why this podcast, I believe, is so important, because we're not going to share just our experiences and our challenges that we're overcoming, okay? Because we don't have problems. We have challenges. Problems lead you to emotional roller coasters. Challenges release your abilities and skill sets and potential to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to understand that. We need God's help with this path to walk this journey of autism.
Oh, absolutely.
Not without him. And when we walk with him through this journey, he gives us instructions. Then and only then will we be able to work on our patients. Then and only then will we be able to, have insight and know how to research and get resources that we need to support our children's needs. They have a purpose, and we have a purpose. Our autism crossed our path, and now we're simultaneously going it together. And in doing so, we have to walk it together.
To anyone that's listening, just know that you are not alone in this topic. There are plenty of people out there who are experiencing the same thing you are. Of course, every case is different, of course, but you're not alone. And there are people to talk to, whether or not it is someone where at your church and your congregation, whether it is a stranger off the street, or I joined me and Derica every once in a while we'll skim through it, but we joined a Facebook group of parents who are going through the same thing that we did starting out. I left an open invitation. I got a text message about, maybe I want to say about 4 or 5 months ago, from someone that was in the group and just had questions in the San Diego area. So I got him in contact with my coordinator, and so far they said progress is good and they love my coordinator and they were able to get my coordinator. So, there's no issue there.
Well, I think that's a good segue to say thank you.
Yes.
For joining me on this
podcast.
podcast.
And thank you so much for having me. I would love to come back and chat some more, but
yeah.
If there's ever anyone out there, please, the one person you can talk to is Pastor Holmes.
Thank you much, James. I really appreciate this. We're gonna be doing another segment. You know we are.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be back for it too. I'm ready.
Have a blessed one, okay?
You guys have a great one as well.